Alrighty, good evening. Tonight is, let me see, what is tonight? Thursday, October 16th, 2025. I hate that I'm just wearing a sweatshirt right now. I look like a disgusting animal, but wanted to go live tonight. Want to do at least 2 shows a week if I can. This is not going to be a long one, but I do want to touch on something that I actually meant to talk about yesterday, but got so caught up with the whole Israel peace deal stuff that I ended up honestly forgetting all about it and didn't even talk about it. But what I really want to talk about tonight is there was this big story that's been going on this week. And essentially what happened was you had this group of college Republicans in New York. It's like, I believe it's the either it's just the college Republicans in general, like their New York branch, or it's the New York Young Republicans Club. I'm not exactly sure. Okay. And these kids, people basically my age, were in a group chat, and they were, it was a typical male gamer group chat. Okay. And they were saying things that probably are not great to be said, but come on, anyone who's been in a group chat, you get exactly what you've seen this shit before. You've done it yourself. Okay. These guys are saying nothing that any of us haven't said in a group chat before. Okay. Most are jokes, dark ones, some Nazi jokes, some, not pleasant stuff, not good stuff. I'm not trying to defend what they said at all, but it's guys being guys, and we've all been there. Okay. We've all, look, who hasn't been on Xbox and dropped a couple N-bombs when you get killed on Call of Duty? Okay. I mean, everyone has. And that was basically what this chat was a bunch of off-color jokes and taking politics to the extreme, and mainly it was off-color jokes and racial slurs and things like along those lines. Okay. And out of nowhere, this group chat gets leaked to Politico, which is a big left-wing newspaper, or not newspaper, but a big left-wing magazine, online blog, whatever. You've heard of Politico. And Politico runs a story basically saying, the Republicans are super racist and they want to kill you all and all this garbage. It's an obvious political hit piece, all right, from the left, because Politico is obviously, they're certainly not a far leftist media outlet, but they're certainly within the mainstream media. So just like general establishment, center left, corporatist garbage media. So this group chat gets leaked to Politico. They write a story about it. And of course the story, like I said, it's scathing. It's just going through all these texts and just hammering these kids. And, it's what you would expect, okay? And that's not really what I feel was the big story here, though, that this group chat got leaked. Because, look, anyone who's been in one of these group chats, how many people have said in a group chat, if this shit ever leaks, we're fucked? I know I've done that before. I've done that plenty of times before. My friends have done that plenty of times before that I'm in group chats with. And even in this group chat that got leaked, there were texts in this chat saying, if this ever gets leaked, we're all fucked. It's like, yeah, because you're in a group chat with your friends, you're shooting the shit and you're saying shit you're not supposed to say, but you're in a group chat with your boys, so you say it because you're in a group chat with your boys, and that's what you do, and everyone's got to be edgy and whatnot. And so, again, I'm not defending what they said in particular. I saw some of the texts, and honestly, they weren't like terrible. They weren't great, but they weren't like devastatingly bad. They were shit that you say on fucking Call of Duty. They were shit that you say in a group chat, okay? It's bad stuff, but it's not like it wasn't the end of the world stuff. It wasn't like some guy wrote a fucking manifesto on there or anything like that. It's just a bunch of guys being vulgar, being racist, shooting the shit. And it gets leaked, okay? But I don't really think that's the story, that it got leaked to a left-wing media. Or I think that is the story. But I think the real story is who leaked it. Why was it leaked? Because, again, it's not I don't care that a bunch of guys on a group chat were saying, offensive, politically incorrect shit. Because again, that's just typical of a group chat. I don't even care that it got leaked, okay? If it was some leftist that had somehow gotten into the chat and then leaked it, then I'd be like, well, you let some leftist into your chat, boys. Like, what'd you expect was going to happen? Of course they're going to fucking leak it. I mean, come on. No, the story is who leaked it. And from what's been reported, it seems that a guy by the name of Gavin Wax was the leaker of this chat, okay? Now, in the past, I've actually been a pretty big fan of Gavin Wax. So Gavin Wax, just from the little bit that I know of him, I follow him on Twitter. And again, in the past, always seemed right on the money to me. I didn't really have many disagreements with him. I always kind of liked what he had to say. And from what I know about him, I believe Gavin Wax is the leader of the New York Young Republicans Club, which you may hear New York Young Republicans Club and think, who cares about the New York Young Republicans Club? It's, first off, a fucking Young Republicans Club, one, but two, it's in like one of the bluest states in the country in New York. But the New York Young Republicans Club is actually a very, very powerful organization within the Republican Party. I mean, it's not the most powerful organization, but it's an influential organization because just because New York City is a liberal city, I mean, it's still a city of, the metro area is 20 million people in the tri-state area of New York, New Jersey, and Connecticut. I mean, there's 20 million people that live in that area. And so even if 65% of them are Democrats, that's still a good 35-40% that are Republicans, and backed by more money than anywhere else in the country. So there's still millions of Republicans in the New York area, and they're extremely wealthy because there's a lot of money in New York City. And so that means a lot of donors. And because of that, this New York Young Republicans Club is actually, again, a pretty influential, fairly important, impressive organization. Again, in New York. And nationally in the Republican Party, because out of every young Republicans club in the country, the New York one is kind of the leading light, the leading brand, because it's New York City. And even though, again, it's a liberal city, that doesn't mean there's not a lot of Republicans there. Doesn't mean that there's not a lot of money behind Republicans there. And so it appears that the leader of the New York Republicans Club, the New York Young Republicans Club, Gavin Wax, was the one who leaked this group chat. And that is really, really disturbing to me and deeply upsetting. Because obviously this chat was leaked for political purposes. Again, if it was someone on the left, I probably wouldn't be talking about this. I would devote maybe 5 minutes of my time to talk about it. If it's just some leftist got in the chat and leaked it again, it's like, what are you doing, boys? You let some fucking leftist into your chat? Of course they're going to leak it. But the fact that the leader of the New York Young Republicans Club was the one who leaked this, again, is deeply, deeply disturbing. And it, frankly, upsets me to a degree that I have not been upset in a long time. In fact, it pisses me the fuck off is what it does. Because, well, how should I put this? It pisses me off, yes, but I feel like, just personally at least, after Charlie Kirk got murdered, I think that should have been a wake-up call to people on the right. That at the bare minimum, there are no enemies to the right, okay? Because the left actively wants to kill us. They want to rape our country. They will laugh and cheer watching your sister get raped and watching you and your friends get murdered. The left will celebrate that. And so after Charlie Kirk's murder, that should have been a wake-up call to the right that, hey, whatever petty differences we may have, those need to be put to the side. We're all on one team here. And this was a massive violation of what I hoped would arise after Charlie Kirk's murder. Because this is a stab in the back by someone who, up until a couple days ago, Gavin Wax, I thought was a real rising star on the right. He had actually put together some really big events, put together an event with Trump in New York, new President Trump. His wife, I believe, this guy's wife, is some Wall Street heiress, like a bunch of money, like has loads of cash. I could be totally wrong on that, so don't quote me on that. But this guy's got backing, he's got influence. And again, up until a couple days ago, I liked mostly everything this guy said, this guy Gavin Wax. I thought that he was really on the money, and I saw him as kind of a rising star in the movement on the right. And unfortunately now, though, he has become Judas. He's become Judas. And he has betrayed the right and stabbed the right in the back and purposefully leaked this group chat to a left-wing media outlet in order to smear his fellow young Republicans, his fellow college, or he's not in college, but I think it was a college Republican group chat, but point standing, his fellow young Republicans has decided to smear them and bar them from the movement over some group chats. And why? Why? Well, I mean, to be fair, Gavin Wax is Jewish, and there were a lot of kind of Nazi jokes in the chat. But even still, these people whose chat got leaked, they were underneath Gavin Wax. They were working for him. So Gavin, I mean, do you really think these guys are making some Nazi jokes? You really think they're fucking Nazis? Really? They're working for you. They're working for you. They wouldn't work for you if they were fucking Nazis for real. They're making fucking jokes. But he uses that as an attempt to step on people beneath him and try and move up the ladder, which I hope backfires significantly. I hope his career should be over at this point, Gavin Wax. He should never have any sort of clout or influence on the right anymore. His Twitter's gone completely silent since this story broke, and since it was reported that he was the leaker. And I went on, he's got on his Twitter, his pinned post is actually like a sweet post of him when he proposed to his wife, and all of the fucking replies are just Judas, fuck you, you're a bastard, burn in hell. Like, it's just roasting him because he hasn't tweeted in days, so he doesn't have any recent tweets. His most recent tweet is just his pinned tweet, which is him I think proposing to his wife in Central Park, and every single reply is just Judas, 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 Judas. It's awesome. I love it. I love it. That's the exact kind of treatment that he should get. Banish that guy from the movement. Banish him, absolutely. But this is a major problem on the right, this sort of gatekeeping type of stuff. And far too often you see gatekeeping on the right by oftentimes Jewish Zionists, okay? The most prominent gatekeeper I can think of just throughout kind of the movement of the past, 20 or 10 years or so. I mean, I would say Ben Shapiro comes to mind as a pretty big gatekeeper who is the first to take shots to his right, even before he'll take shots to his left. And Shapiro actually said something today that I want to talk about in response to this, because he and Matt Walsh, who's another big guy at the Daily Wire, were kind of getting into a spat over this leaked group chat. And Shapiro was kind of not fully endorsing its leak, but like kind of in a way saying, like, I'm not really upset that it got leaked because fuck these guys who were saying this shit in the group chat. And Matt Walsh, on the other hand, was like on a warpath like I am. Fuck anyone that leaked this. Fuck anyone who won't defend these kids. No enemies to the right whatsoever, not after Charlie. We've got to band together. No more gatekeeping. I'm not going to have enemies to my right when the left is actively trying to kill me. And Ben Shapiro was kind of taking this stance of like, well, sure, I get where you're coming from. The left is actively trying to kill you. They're actively trying to kill me too. But there's also, I get death threats from people on the right. I get death threats from groypers, from white supremacists. This is Ben Shapiro saying this. And I have armed security not just to protect me from the left, but also from the right. And so to me, this is what Ben Shapiro was saying. To me, I can kind of empathize with wanting to gatekeep against these types of people who say some like pretty racist, anti-Semitic things. And my takeaway from that was, but Shapiro's not exactly wrong when he says that. You have people on the left, which he was fully like, there are people on the left that want to kill me, but there's also people on the right that want to kill me. And he's not exactly wrong when he says that, but he's also kind of missing the whole point of the right. And my kind of response to Shapiro would be, and I even tweeted this, is I get where he's coming from, but I highly doubt that like a groyper would ever try to kill Ben Shapiro. I highly doubt a groyper would ever try to kill Ben Shapiro. And if, God forbid, a groyper did kill Ben Shapiro, the first person to call that out would be Nick Fuentes. He would be the first one to disavow that kind of political violence. I do believe that. And I'm not even a groyper. I'm not even a groyper. I've got disagreements with the groypers, but just from what I've seen, if a groyper murdered Ben Shapiro, which first off, I don't think a groyper would murder Ben Shapiro, but if a groyper did kill Ben Shapiro, the first one to call it out would be Nick Fuentes, the leader of the groypers, who you can kind of say are like the far right white nationalist group in America. But if a leftist killed Ben Shapiro, not only do I think that's much, much more likely than a groyper ever killing Ben Shapiro, but if a leftist killed Ben Shapiro, just like when Charlie Kirk got assassinated, the left would celebrate it. They would openly celebrate it. And so that would be kind of my message to a guy like Ben Shapiro, who's tempted to gatekeep and tempted to leak these chats for either petty political reasons because, well, you might have a disagreement on Israel, which, like, I think, and this is something that, this is something that kind of Shapiro and a lot of these Zionist Jews will do is they have a lot of accumulated power on the right over generations. And now that there's been a split on the right on the issue of Israel, they've aggressively been gatekeeping on the right to try and smear and shut out any voices on the right who are critical of Israel. And to me, I think that when they do that, they are not only is it sick and wrong that they are doing that because it's just a kind of right-wing cancel culture to me. But the other problem with them doing that is that they're missing the point. They're directing all of their fire on friendly targets. Sure, they might have a disagreement over Israel, but at the end of the day, Tucker Carlson and Ben Shapiro and Candace Owens don't want to murder Ben Shapiro. Period. They don't want to murder Gavin Wax. They don't want to murder the left for that matter. But the left actively would love to see Ben Shapiro dead. Now, they would love to see Nick Fuentes and Tucker Carlson and Candace Owens dead too. Which, by the way, just because I'm listing these people doesn't mean like I'm like agree with all of them entirely. I'm not. I would say I have differences with all the people that I just named politically. But I'm just giving a picture of the right here. The left would kill any of them and cheer it on while they did it. None of those people on the right, none of those those Israel critics on the right would ever want any bad things to happen to Ben Shapiro, ever. They would never want his family harmed. They would never want him harmed. If a leftist bombed Ben Shapiro's house and killed his entire family, they would cheer it just like they cheered it when Charlie Kirk got assassinated. And not to mention, on top of all of this, not only would those anti-Israel voices on the right not want to kill Ben Shapiro, but any right-winger would be far less likely of doing something violent against Ben Shapiro than a leftist would. So the left is far more likely to turn to violence, and they would cheer it on. So not only if God forbid a right winger were to do something to a guy like a Ben Shapiro, the first ones to call that shit out and condemn that violence, which I think would be a genuine reaction, would be others on the right, Israel critical voices on the right. They would be the first to condemn if a right winger did something against Ben Shapiro, which in the first place, I don't think a right winger would ever do because we're just built different. Secondly, I think a leftist would be far more likely to kill anyone on the right, any prominent voice on the right. And on top of that, the left would cheer it on. They would never condemn. And even if they publicly condemned, secretly behind the scenes, they would cheer it on. Look at this guy in Virginia, this Jay Jones. He's this black Democrat who, by all accounts, is an establishment figure. He's not like some radical leftist who's running to be the attorney general of Virginia. And this group chat, or not this group chat, but this text chain of his got leaked, where basically he was fantasizing about murdering his political opponents. So that's why I say everyone on the left would love to see everyone on the right, whether they're Israel supporters, whether they're hardcore Zionist Jews or Israel skeptics. Everyone on the left would want to see all of them dead. Every single one of them dead. Including guys like Jay Jones, establishment figures in the Democratic Party, establishment politicians. They won't say it publicly, but behind the scenes, we know what their true feelings are. So why do I think Gavin Wax leaked this group chat? Well, I think there could have been political reasons behind it. It could have been a political reason. Maybe Gavin Wax is a Zionist Jew. It could have been that he didn't like that these people might have been or could have been Israel skeptics. And that might have been part of the reason why he leaked this group chat to defame them and to smear them in the media. It could have also just been petty personal reasons. I mean, it could have been that some of these people were threats to him and his own organization. And so he wanted to smear their name and kick them out. So he leaked this to the media. Or it could have been a bit of both. I don't really know why he did it, but he did. And no matter what the reason was that Gavin Wax leaked this group chat, it is utterly unacceptable. It is missing the entire game. It is missing the ball. And more than anything, it is deeply destructive to the right. One of the great things about the modern right is that there is a massive diversity of political thought in the MAGA coalition, in the Donald Trump coalition. You've got Maha moms, the RFK Jr. granola moms who want to get clean food and drugs. You've got traditional like neocons, some of them, not all of them, not many of them, but I shouldn't say neocons. You've got I take that back, actually. You don't have neocons in the MAGA coalition. They're on the Democratic side now. But you have like I said, Maha moms, I wouldn't say neocons, but you've got like old school Tea Party, religious right conservatives, guys like that. I would honestly group Shapiro into that group. I would group Ted Cruz into that group. You've also got kind of new right types, paleocons, kind of like Pat Buchanan admirers, which I would count myself in that group. You've got some libertarians, some right kind of Ron Paul descended libertarians. You've got some of these sort of Israel skeptical folks, kind of isolationists. There's a diversity of you've got the tech right. The point is there's a diversity of thought within the MAGA movement. And it's so depressing to see these group chats leaked because there was such a hope, at least from me, that after Charlie Kirk's assassination, whatever differences we may have on the right, all of them should be put aside. All of them should be put aside because the left has very little ideological differences between them. Very, very little ideological differences. And if you ask a leftist, what ideological differences do you have with, like, say, the Democratic establishment, they'll list off a bunch of things. But in reality, there's not much difference between the Democratic establishment and a radical leftist. really the main differences between those two are kind of some peripheral economic and foreign policy concerns. But on most of the social issues, frankly, on most of the economic issues, they are more or less aligned. There is not a big difference of opinion on the left. I think the only difference between the establishment left and sort of the revolutionary left is that the establishment left wants to bring about a sort of corporate anarcho-tyranny, a sort of corporate-dominated managerial state through the system and in stages. Whereas the revolutionary left, in their minds, want, revolution now, basically, which is, but I think is in the end is only going to get them kind of the same end goal that sort of the establishment left wants ultimately. I think they're both shooting for the same goal. I just think their tactics and the way they talk about it are a little bit different. But I think they're both ultimately shooting for the same goal. Maybe a slightly different goal, but by nths of degree. Put it this way. Everyone on the left, from a radical leftist to the most like establishment Democratic politician, wants to trans the kids. Okay. They want to castrate the kids. Every single one of them. Doesn't matter from Obama and from Obama and the Clintons and Joe Biden all the way down to your average street Antifa leftist. Every single one of them wants to castrate the kids. Every single one of them. Every single one of them wants open borders. Every single one of them. So there really aren't as many differences on the left as there are on the right, which is why it calls for even more effort to be put in to put our differences aside. I'm not saying that we can't have differences, okay? I don't care if you're a Zionist and you're on the right. I don't care if you're super Israel skeptic and you're on the right. Again, I take kind of a middle of the road position when it comes to the Israel issue. I know it's been a big dividing issue on the right, and I'm kind of middle of the road on that issue. I talked about that last night. I don't care if you're a Mahamam or if you love, big gulp sodas from 7-Eleven. I don't care, all right? I don't care if you like to smoke a pack of cigarettes or if you're RFK Jr. I don't care. Whatever those petty differences are, because they are petty, they need to be put aside. And the reason that I say that those are petty differences, because in the grand scheme of things, I mean, we're talking about foreign policy. We're talking about economic policy. We're talking about social policy. The right has differences in all those areas. And those are, I shouldn't say those are petty issues. They're not petty issues. They're actually big, important issues. But against what we're facing, the rape and destruction of our country, the demographic replacement of heritage Americans, compared to what we're facing, our differences are nothing. They are nothing. They are irrelevant. And so what I think needs to take place ultimately is the true believers of the right. And I don't care what section of the right you come from. I don't care if you're like a Tea Party, sort of like, I don't care if you're a Tea Partier. I don't care if you're a right libertarian. I don't care if you're a Maha. I don't care if you are kind of like neo-isolationist. I don't care if you're tech right. I don't care what you are. I don't care what side of the right you are on. But I think what this sort of group chat leak shows is there needs to be unity amongst the parts of the right that will not gatekeep. In other words, I think the parts of the right that are not going to gatekeep on the right, the parts of the right who are willing to put aside their differences with others on the right, need to expel from the right those who will fire arrows to their right, if that makes sense. Anyone on the right who is willing to attack the right needs to be expelled from the right by those on the right, no matter where they fall on the right, who will not strike to their right. There are no enemies to the right. And every right-winger, every true American, because look, I keep saying right-winger. At this point, if you are on the right, that just means that you're a real American. Because the left are not real Americans, because they would love to rape this country and replace the heritage American population that makes up this country. They're literally trying to replace us. They're literally trying to castrate our kids. It's their stated goal. And so on the right, no matter where you fall on the right, if you believe like I do, that we are facing an existential threat from the left, proven beyond a shadow of a doubt as by Charlie Kirk's assassination, then you must band together with other people on the right who agree that we are facing an existential threat from the left. And you must band together to expel those from the right who will attack their own side. Period. A guy like Gavin Wax can never have a career in politics again. Not on the right. He can join the Dems. If he wants to say, oh, I've had this new awakening and now I'm a liberal Democrat, fine. Then he can have a career in politics, not in Republican politics. He cannot have a career in Republican politics. His allies must desert him. He must be banished from the halls of power. Because no more shots to the right. No more shots to the right. I don't care what your political differences may be with other right-wingers. No more shots fired on the right, period. And if people from the right fire shots at the right, they need to be expelled from the right. They must never have political power or influence in this country, not in the Republican Party, on our side, because the stakes are too high. The stakes are too high. We can't have interlopers subverting our movement. Not right now. We cannot have interlopers subverting our movement. Not at this point. We cannot have gatekeepers in our movement who will police what right-wing thought is acceptable and what is not. If you're going to police right-wing thought in any way, you need to go to the left. You need to get out of the right because you're only hurting us. You're not helping us. And if you're going to hurt us, then de facto, you are aiding the left, who wants to kill every single one of you, who will actively cheer it when your sister is raped, who will laugh maniacally as you bleed out on the ground. That's who we're facing. And so if you are going to gatekeep on the right, if you're going to fire shots at the right, if you're going to try and cancel fellow right-wingers, then you need to go to the left. Or at least be banished from the right. Because you're only hurting us, and the stakes against the left are far too high. So it's very disappointing to see this group chat get leaked by a right-winger. Again, I would not be so upset and pissed off if it was some leftist that got into this group chat and leaked it to Politico. But the fact that it was Gavin Wax who did it is deeply disturbing. Gavin Wax and anyone on the right who thinks like him, who thinks that it was okay to leak this chat, who thinks that it was okay to gatekeep or police who can be on the right and who can't, and what thoughts can be expressed on the right and what can't. Anyone who thinks that way needs to be expelled. They cannot have any influence. They cannot have any career on the right. They must be shut down and destroyed. Their careers must be ruined. Gavin Wax's career must be over. I hope every Twitter post he makes from here on out, if he ever makes one again, because honestly, the replies have been brutal. I hope every Twitter post he makes from here on out, he gets completely ratioed. I want to see him get ratioed for the rest of existence. I want to see him get voted out from his own position at the New York Republicans Club. I want to see his career fucking over. Because the stakes are too high. No more shots to the right. We face too big of a threat to our left. So, a little bit shorter show tonight. I'm going to wrap it up. I will be going live next week again. I don't know when. I'll have to keep y'all posted. I'm hoping I can get live maybe Monday. I don't know. But yeah. So we'll be going live next week. Appreciate y'all. Have a good evening.